Hello and welcome back to Movie Recap Time. Today we would be recapping an American Christmas comedy movie, titled Bad Santa. Willie acts as Santa every year, together with his dwarf assistant Marcus. Every Christmas, they get Santa jobs with reputable malls. After the daily job, Marcus would hide behind in the mall. When the security leaves, they steal all the valuables in the mall and drive away with the help of Marcus's wife Lois, who acts as their getaway driver. Marcus was dedicated to his duty. He was committed, but Willie was the exact opposite. Willie would drink all through his presentation as a Santa and in fact pee on his dress. After they finished their job last Christmas, Willie brought Marcus to a bar to celebrate. Marcus advised him about his way of life and he promised Marcus he would change. He says he had plans. He would travel to Miami to live a good life, buy a house, buy a car, open a bar and marry a waitress. Marcus laughed at him. He told him he is sure by the next Christmas when he gets his call he would run back for work. Several months later, Willie was in Miami, but trust me, he wasn't living the life he promised Marcus. At Miami, he visited a bar, where he disguised as the bar owner to steal alcohol. When the bar owner caught him, went to the beach to watch naked women. He crashed at home that night. It was Christmas period again. His alarm woke him that morning to wish him happy Christmas Eve, but drunk Willie threw the alarm away. That day, he went to a car park, stole keys to a lot of cars. He pressed the alarm in each key to differentiate the cars. He saw a very nice car and stole it. He entered the car, checked the address of the car owner, went to the address and stole the money in his house. He spent the money at a bar that day and brought back home a woman. When he got home that night, he had been anticipating Marcus's call. He listened to the messages on his voicemail and he got the call of Marcus asking him to come home. Just as Marcus predicted, Willie ran back for his yearly duty. Marcus had gotten him a job at a supermarket. While speaking to the supermarket manager Bob, Willie was distracted looking at a lady's ass. He said irrelevant words to the manager, including using the word fuck stick. Marcus assured the manager he wouldn't do that in front of kids. Disturbed, the manager went to the chief security Jin to announce their presence and asked the chief security to watch Marcus and ensure he doesn't say plus 18 words in front of kids. When it was time for Santa display, Willie was already drunk. Marcus found him and brought him for the display. Thurman, a fat, kind, extremely gullible little boy who had been bullied by everyone around for his weight, visited Willie. He asked if Willie was a real Santa and Willie replied positively. After Thurman left the supermarket, he sat outside the supermarket not wanting to go home. At night, Marcus and Willie finished their job and Willie went to a bar. At the bar, a black man was looking at him suspiciously. Willie meets Sue at the bar. Sue had this fetish thing for Santa, so she became close to Willie and they had sex together in the car that night. After the sexual pleasure, Sue told Willie she had always loved Santas and she is happy to have sex with him, after which Sue excused herself. The man looking at Willie in the bar came out to attack him. As the man attacked him, Thurman ran out of where he sat down to save Santa. After saving him, Willie drove Thurman home. When they arrived at Thurman's home, Willie asked him who was at home and Thurman replied his mother is dead and his father Roger is in prison, so he stays at home with his grandma. Willie followed Thurman into the house. He asked Thurman if his father had a safe. He cracked the safe and stole the money. He manipulatively asked Thurman if his father had a car. Thurman gave him his father's car and he left with it. The next day at the supermarket, Bob caught Willie having sex with a woman in the supermarket store. Bob called Willie and Marcus and threatened to sack them, telling them another person was interested in the job. Willie blackmailed him he would be called out for injustice if he sacks them, so Bob gave up. In the supermarket that day, Willie also sexually harassed a young lady. When Marcus saw him, he took him out and insulted him. Bob visited Jin, told Jin all the atrocities Willie had been committing. He told Jin he wouldn't be able to sack Willie based on what he did, so he needs evidence, strong ones that would be enough to sack Willie. Jin agreed to help him. As Willie drove to his motel that night, he saw there was someone in his room. He asked around and he was told someone entered his room. He called Marcus, and Marcus advised him to stalk around at someone else's home for the time being. So Willie decided to stay with Thurman. Thurman accepted him into their house and enjoyed his time asking Willie all about his position as a Santa. Thurman disturbed Willie up until Willie slept off. The next day, Thurman woke Willie up with orange juice. He brought his advert calendar. The advert calendar is a Christmas box with stories and gifts. Thurman opened the day's advent calendar and checked the content. Willie met with Marcus and his wife. Marcus insulted him for staying with a kid and told him he may be ratted out. Willie asked Marcus to stop behaving like his mother. The trio sat together in the supermarket restaurant to eat. While Willie was eating, a child came nearer to him asking for a picture. Willie cursed at the child and the child's mother promised to report Willie to the manager. Jin called one of his informants to make inquiries about Willie's car plate number, keeping in mind that the car actually belongs to Roger. That night, Willie returned to Thurman's home and played games with Thurman. Willie scattered the game because Thurman was winning and refused to play again. They heard a knock at the door. It was one of the neighbors. The neighbor informed them about a party in the neighborhood for Christmas. Willie told them he wouldn't attend. Sue visited Willie. They had sex at the backyard. After the sex, Sue told Willie she likes kids and she wants to have kids. He asked Willie when he would be leaving and he said soon. Willie saw her off the apartment and went ahead to eat all the candies in Thurman's advent calendar. It was almost Christmas Day. Willie and Thurman went to the supermarket quite early to set up their stealing instrument. They brought in the instruments and checked their escape route out of the supermarket. Jin got a call about the inquiry. He was told that the car belongs to Roger and Roger was in prison. Jin visited Roger in prison, asked Roger if he had a guest in his house and Roger said no. Jin went ahead to Bob, told Bob Willie was clean and Willie had no illegal side of him. That day, Willie cooked for Thurman and his grandma. Thurman asked who destroyed his advent calendar but Willie didn't confess. Willie resumed at the supermarket for his duty. As Thurman came down from the bus to visit Santa, the skate boys who stayed around the bus stop bullied him again. He visited Santa and asked for a gorilla to attack the skate boys who pull out his pants every time. Willie laughed at him and told him he doesn't need a gorilla because when he was a kid, whenever other kids beat him up and he goes to tell his dad, what his dad does is to beat him again. Willie advised Thurman to learn to fight for himself and defend himself. After Thurman left, Jin visited Willie and Marcus. He invited them to a bar. He confessed to them he knew what they had been doing for 7 years and he must commend their act as smart. He told them he had caught them but he wouldn't reveal them on the condition that they would give him 50% of all they earned this year. The crew had no choice, they accepted Jin to their circle. Leaving the bar, Willie got so drunk, he came back to the supermarket acting irrationally. Jin asked that Marcus take Willie to the car while he finds an excuse to give Bob on behalf of Willie. In the car at home, Willie wanted to kill himself. As he practiced, Thurman came out of the house. Thurman asked if he wasn't going to work that day or if he would stay home. Willie told him he would be in the car and gave Thurman a suicide letter. He asked Thurman to give the suicide letter to the police when they arrived to pack his dead body. As he was talking to Thurman, he saw that Thurman had a red eye. He asked how he got it and he was told it was from the skate boys bullying him. Willie got so angry, went to the boys and beat the hell out of them. After beating them, he told Marcus of his experience and asked Marcus to help him train Thurman how to defend himself. They all went for boxing training. The training ended badly though. That night, Willie went back home with Sue. They met Grandma sleeping with her mouth opened and Willie put some cigarettes in her mouth. Willie and Sue went to the room to have sex. As they were making out, Thurman came inside the room with a Christmas gift for Willie. He said he cut himself while making the gift and Willie was so emotional. Sue commented that Thurman was a very sweet kid. The next morning, Thurman brought his school result. He gave the result to Willie and asked that Willie checks out his academic performance. He asked that since he did very well academically, Willie should please give him a gift. Willie refused and told him he wasn't a Santa. Thurman accepted that, but asked for a gift because he was his friend. Marcus planned an act of revenge against Jin. He and his wife stalked Jin till he came out of work. Marcus kept a broken car on the way and stopped Jin to help him repair the car. While Jin was repairing the car, Lois Speedy drove another car against Jin, injuring him. Marcus electrocuted Jin and killed him. Willie celebrated the season with Thurman and Sue. They bought a Christmas tree, decorated the house with Christmas materials, and Sue bathed and dressed Grandma as they all ate together. On Christmas Eve, Lois, Marcus, and Willie set off to rob the supermarket. After Willie had opened the safe, the others took off the money and packed some things they needed at the supermarket. All Willie took was a pouch which he intended to give Thurman as a Christmas gift. Marcus brought out a gun. He told Willie had become useless and he had become a hindrance to their job, so they have to take him out. As Marcus was about to shoot Willie, the police arrived. The police were tipped off by the letter Willie gave Thurman when he was contemplating suicide. Marcus shot at the police and attacked them. While Marcus and the police engaged in a shooting spree, Willie jumped out of the supermarket and drove down to Thurman's house holding the pouch. The police chased him down. Willie refused the order to stop, so he was shot by the police. In a voiceover, Willie wrote a letter to Thurman from the hospital bed. In the letter, he appreciated him for giving the police the letter, as the letter changed him from being a suspect to being a respected citizen that ratted his colleagues out. He bought Thurman a shirt and asked if Thurman got the pouch he dropped at the front of the house. He told Thurman the state had appointed Sue as his legal guardian until his father comes out of jail, and he had also sent some money to Sue so he should convince Sue to buy him some things. He told Thurman he would soon heal up in the hospital and he would come back home. In the letter, He also said his colleagues Lois and Marcus would be serving jail terms. Thurman went out to drive his bicycle and his bully came again, telling him Willie had left and he could now beat him. Thurman kicked the guy in his balls and rode his bicycle off. The movie ended. Thank you for watching this recap. I do hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to subscribe to our channel to get notified when we post the next recap. See you next time.